Chavre, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. Today is Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, Lamed Tishrei, and it's Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Noach. As we've spoken many times, you have to understand the connection between all these things, and what's the relevance, and what's the message, and what is Hashem telling us today. Before we start, since the war started a year ago, we added tzedakah. So first we'll give tzedakah, Gedelet tzedakah shemakareves agula, Mashiach shall come now. Now we're going to say a pasuk, a prayer, which will be connected to the theme that we're going to speak about today. And this is Kapitel Kuf Yutes, pasuk Kuf Samach and Tilim, Reish Dvar Cho Emes, U'Yelam Kol Mishpat Tzidkecha. The beginning of your word is truth, and forever are all your righteous judgments. So the commentators over here explain, Reish Dvar Cho Emes. The beginning of your word is truth. The first of the Aseret Adibris, Anochi Hashem Alikecha. That means Reish, the beginning of the Ten Commandments is, I am the Lord your God. And that is the only true reality, especially as Chassidus explains. And the whole point is, the Anochi Havai Alikecha is the truth of reality. So there's the idea of speaking in a language of religion, and then there's the idea of speaking in a language of truth. Today, we're going to discuss how the approach is to be, in a way, about truth. It's not about obedience. It's not about being a good boy. It's not about being a saint. It's not about holiness. It's about truth. And this is what it means. The main point of Anochi Havai Alikecha is that a person should come to an awareness and a consciousness of the truth and the truth of existence and reality. And forever are all your righteous judgments, that each of the mitzvahs express this truth of Hashem's oneness. Okay, in this week's parsha, Parshas Noach, and I want to show, as we previously mentioned, the connection between how it's amazing how Chassidus teaches us the connection between the portion of the week that we're studying and the calendar. Not always do we see it in such an obvious manner, but when it comes to Parshas Noach and the message that it speaks about in this week's Parsha, we spoke about this many times, but today we're going to add another dimension, another aspect. So in Parshas Noach, it says that the flood, this Parsha is all about the flood, the deluge. So it says that the Mabul started B'shnas Sheish Meir Shana L'chai Noach, in the 600th year of Noach's life, Nivku Kol Mayones Tohoim Rabbo Varubasham Hashemayim Niftechu. All the well springs of the awesome depth, all the well springs of the awesome depths of the earth burst forth, and the portals of heaven opened. So the waters came from both directions, from above downwards, and also from the depths of the earth. Now on this verse, there's such a fantastic, astonishing statement of the Zohar. The Zohar was written almost 2,000 years ago, and in the Zohar there was a prediction, a prophecy, connected to these words. In the 600th year of Noach's life, there was a flood that came from above to below, talking about the Mabul in the Chumash, and the flood also was waters from below upwards. So the Zohar wrote almost 2,000 years ago that Ubishis Me'eshnin L'Shisa Yiftechun Trei De Chachmasa Le'elo U'Maboy De Chachmasa L'Sata V'Yistaken Alma La'Lo B'Shvi'o. In the 600th year of the 6th millennium, the floodgates, there'll be a flood of supernal wisdom will open. That means there'll be a wisdom, like a Torah wisdom, from above that will explode. There'll be an explosion, a major revelation of supernal Torah wisdom. and the well springs of lower wisdom will burst forth to prepare the world to enter the 7th millennium. So as you all know, we're right now in the year 5785. That means we're in the 6th millennium, because as soon as it becomes the year 5001, one day into the 5000, that means we're in the 6th millennium. And 5600 was the 600th year of the 6th millennium. Yes? And that was an English date corresponding to 1839, 1840. So that means the Zohar that was written almost 2,000 years ago prophesied and predicted that in the year 1839-40 there will be an explosion of knowledge, a new revelation of Torah from above, and there'll be a flood of knowledge, of wisdom, and there'll be a flood of knowledge Milmata l'mayla, from below, in secular sciences. So the Rebbe in the Sikha and Chelet Tezvav speaks about this. Many other sages have spoken about this, and Torah scholars, that this could be related to the Industrial Revolution. I'm not going to go into what exactly, from what year to what year was the Industrial Revolution, but we'll use it as a general term, that there was an explosion of knowledge, of technology and science and development in the modern world, starting from 1840 or culminating in 1840, but it continued after that also, which pushed the world, advanced the world in ways that we can never imagine. Just to give an example, but this doesn't technically mean the Industrial Revolution, but just to give one example. Let's say, for example, when cars were invented in the early 1900s or the late 1800s. So could you imagine there's a world that men traveled by horses for thousands and thousands and thousands of years? The main mode of travel was horses. All of a sudden there's a car, and this car changed the world completely compared to the way it was before through horses. Just to give an example. So that's what it means, that there's an explosion, there's something that relatively quickly accelerates a lifestyle and a way of life which completely supersedes, so to speak, and overrides completely thousands and thousands of years that we lived like in a manner before, and in 1 minute it's changed completely to a whole new way. That's what it means, that there was an explosion of knowledge, and this is what it means, that there was the Industrial Revolution. It changed in many, many ways how we lived our life, and it was completely different than ways in which we couldn't even imagine. So, what is the flood that came from above? That's primarily the revelation of Chassidus, which is before 1830, but it culminated in the years of 1830 through the development of Chabad Chassidus, the proliferation of Torah in a way that was never before. Don't forget, there was publishing, and therefore was able to reach many, many, many more people in a mass way, completely incomparable and exponentially greater than before. So the Rebbe asks on this 2 questions on this Zohar. Number 1, why does the Zohar say that this, the secular explosion of knowledge, was a preparation for Mashiach? He says both together are a preparation for Mashiach. If he's speaking about the godly wisdom as a preparation for Mashiach, no. We can understand Mashiach means the knowledge of Hashem. The knowledge of Hashem will fill the world. So when there's more knowledge of Hashem through the revelation of the floodgates of above, the supernal godly wisdom is revealed. So that's a preparation for Mashiach. But what is the explosion of secular knowledge have to do with a preparation for the 7th millennium? And also, why is it that it comes together? When we talk about the story with the Mabel, we're telling us what happened. That the waters came from above and they came from below. But if we're talking about the Zohar, the Kabbalah, the Pnimius of Torah, and it says that they came together, there must be a reason why the explosion of the secular knowledge comes together, coincides in sync with the spiritual knowledge. So I'm going to tell you what the Rebbe said over there, but I want to we speak more general today, and we're going to talk about subjects that we've definitely spoken about before. But first, let's go to a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. Last Shabbos, was Shabbos Bereishis. We didn't speak about Shabbos Bereishis so much. We spoke about Simchas Torah. But the truth is, everything starts from Bereishis. And there's a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. And what we're going to speak about today, how we view the world, is a life changer, a game changer. What we're going to speak about today, like we try to demonstrate many times, through Chassidus, you live your life, every second of your life, differently. Because you're wearing a different pair of glasses. Your perspective is different. Your mindset is different. Your attitude is different. Your approach is different. It's a paradigm shift in relation to everything. So in last week's Pasha, there's a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov on the Pasuk, Bereishis Bore Elikim Eis HaShamayim Ve'eis HaAretz. And it says as follows, the Baal Shem Tov was mafarish the Pasuk, Bereishis. The Ascholas HaAveda is Bereishis. In the beginning. First things first. What's the first principle in serving Hashem? The beginning of Avodah is Bara Elikim, Megala Zayin, the Mishem Elikim. The word Bara, which literally means to create. Hashem created the world. But over here, Bara means to reveal. And he brings Bara Miloshen, Shema Hivri, Nike V'yotzel L'chutz. There's a Gemara that talks about if a lung perforated the body and stuck outside, so then it's an animal which is not kosher. But Shem Mehivri means really in case a lung perforated and then was covered up and healed. So he says you don't have to worry about that. So even though the word Hivri, it really means healed, but it's connected with a lung sticking out, in other words, revealed, and then becoming healed. So therefore, we could also interpret the word Bara Megalazain, the Mishem Elikim. So, what's the first rule in serving Hashem? To reveal the name of Hashem. Eis HaShamayim Ve'eis HaAretz, in the Shemayim and Aretz. So, this is the whole purpose of a Yid. There's the world, and the world as it seems to be, on ABC, CBS, CNN, BBC. Olam Hazeh liked. It's a false world, Alma the Shikra. And then there's your mission. Your mission is to reveal the godliness, not the fake news, but the inside story, what's really going on over here. And in other words, even though the world seems like a major cover-up on Hashem, what's your mission? Your mission is to uncover Hashem in the totality of existence. Bereishis, the Ascholas HaAveda is Bara Elikim, Megala Zayin, the Mishem Elikim, to reveal Hashem, Eis HaShamayim Ve'eis HaAretz, in the world, in the heavens and the earth. See Sefer HaSichos Tafshin Hey, Amud 64, page 64. So we see that the whole story of life and your mission is to reveal godliness. There is a cover-up, and our mission is to reveal the godliness in the cover-up. But how do we do that? And by the way, it's also brought down in commentaries that the word Bereishis Bara Elikim is Sofatevis Emes. There's the Aleph of Bara, the last letter of the word Bara is Aleph, the last letter of the word Elikim is Mem, and the last letter of the word Bereishis is Sof. So again, it's about we are seeking and searching for truth and to reveal the truth of existence. Now, the point of the Rebbe's Sikha, really, in Chelik Tezvav Noach that we mentioned before, where it speaks about the Zohar, is that there's a major question in general, and this Sikha was said in the 60s, about science, secular wisdoms, Chachmas Chitzonius, and Torah. So there was this tension, there was this conflict between science and secular wisdoms and technology and the wisdom of the Torah. And sometimes it seemed to be a contradiction, and many people had the approach to discard, ignore the world of science and technology and just go with Torah. Now, that's problematic because that's not really going to be a message that's going to influence others that want to try to understand. And therefore the Rebbe comes with a novel approach. Yes, we have nothing against science and technology. But how do you know when the science and technology is truth? Only when it coincides with the Torah. Because the Torah is Torah, the Torah is the Torah of light. And the Torah is the one that defines and reveals and shows to us the truth. And therefore, the explosion of knowledge that goes hand in hand with the explosion of the secular knowledge that goes hand in hand with the explosion of the Torah knowledge is those aspects of the secular knowledge which is truth. And that itself is the message why it comes together, to teach us that as long as it fits and the conclusions of science and technology are in accordance with the Torah, then it's the truth. And if it's not the truth. Because it's not telling you what it really is. Because only the Torah tells us what the truth is of existence. Reish dvorcha emes. Everything in the totality of Anochi Havai Lekecha is to tell you that hu levadehu vein zolosei. Whatever is truth is a being, is an existence, and whatever is not existing. It's not really true. Okay, now in the Sikha, that's the point that the Rebbe makes based on the Maimar Hazal, that we know Bereshis bara lekim b'shul Yisrael b'shul HaTorah. So number one, whatever's in the world is only meant to strengthen a Jew and bring him closer to Hashem. And if it's seemingly not, we have to ignore that and understand that we have to show how that thing, to give meaning to it and true existence to it, we have to show how it's bringing us closer to Hashem, even if sometimes it seems to be in opposition. That's one Maimar Hazal. Bereshis, b'shul Yisrael, b'shul HaTorah. Then there's the other Maimar Hazal, which we haven't picked up, is Kol Masha Bara HaKadosh Baruch Hu Bara L'chvoidei. Whatever Hashem created, He created for His honor. And therefore the Rebbe's approach concerning technology, not like some other Torah opinions, is that the whole purpose it was created in the first place was to be used in a positive way to bring us closer to Hashem, to reveal godliness. Now, obviously, we have to have a warning label that only the people that know how to use it properly could channel all the things of the world in the right way. Like, for example, when it comes to secular sciences, the Alter Rebbe says that only the Ramban V'Siyaiton are the ones that really know how to elevate it directly to Hashem. I don't want to get into details now. Again, we're speaking general. And the same thing is right now, as time goes on, the dangers of the devices is being more and more discovered by the world. How an entire generation has been corrupted and brains out the window and cause a disruption of their attention span, of their ability to focus, of happiness. All of the social ills right now, many of the social ills right now amongst the youth and teenagers and even adults is being connected to internet and social media and devices. There's so much to talk about this. People have written books about it. And as we speak right now, day by day, the medical profession and mental health is discussing more and more how dangerous it is and how we're going to have to make certain restrictions, etc., etc. So that's all true. But if we look at it in the Torah perspective, really everything boils down to, and I think we spoke about this, there's sholosh klippos hatmeis, that which is prohibited, and that which we reveal how it brings us closer to Hashem by ignoring it completely. We're speaking today more about those things that go into the category of klipas neiga, which means we see the potential in a clear, obvious way, but it still could be dangerous. And it has to come with warnings and labels. Take as instructed, you understand? Use only as directed. Otherwise, it could be disastrous. And then there's Kedusha, things like oxygen. That's a good thing. Torah and mitzvahs. I don't want to get into the details. We spoke about many times. Okay, the examples the Rebbe speaks about in the Sikha, he gives two major examples of radio waves. So 1 second. Let's just 3 points the Rebbe makes in the Sikha answering this question. We answered one question: why did the two wisdoms come together in sync? Because to prove that when it's in accordance and in agreement with Torah, then we know it's truth, and otherwise not. But how is it a preparation for Mashiach? It's a preparation for Mashiach because of two reasons. And here comes another 2 points in the Sikha. Number one, the Baal Shem Tov was told, so now, by pressing a finger in one place, you can immediately bring Torah to the entire world. And that helps us bring Mashiach. We have a possibility, a weapon of knowledge, a weapon of love, a weapon of peace, a weapon of light that never had so much power as we have today through technology. So that means that the technology used in a positive way is bringing Mashiach. And the Rebbe explains also about the idea of radio, that at the same time with someone speaking in one end of the world, we can hear it at the other end of the world. And so therefore the idea that there's an eye that sees and an ear that hears Hashem, somebody's watching you, is so easily understood, especially now as time is going on. We say you're being tracked. If you exist in this world, there's a camera somewhere that's recording you. There's somebody that's tracking every single step you're making, every single move you're making, etc., etc. By the way, there's also the butterfly effect. The Rebbe doesn't talk about that, how the whole universe is really one being and one connected. If a butterfly goes like this in Indonesia, it affects something in New York City, etc. The Rebbe doesn't talk about the butterfly effect. The Rebbe also talks about Einstein's, that before Einstein, we saw the world and physical beings as things that are separate, and there's division. You know, when you walk into a room, you saw walls, you saw paper, you saw chairs, you saw wood, you saw steel. But then we realized that there's really mass and energy, and it's really one entity. And the Rebbe speaks in that Sikha, see there, how this gives us an analogy, a mashal, to what Achdus Hashem is. The true unity of Hashem. This is preparing us, just like when Mashiach will come. The Rebbe explains, 2 psukim. Number 1, V'ro kol basar v'nigla kvei davaya. The nigla kvei davaya, God's being, will be revealed. V'ro kol basar, we'll see it. It's going to be obvious into the flesh. So now when we see things that science and technology is revealing in the flesh, that's a step bringing us closer to be able to understand with our mind, with our intellect, how these things are possible. Obviously, it's much, much greater, it's much, much higher. But still, 300 years ago, if you'd speak about the idea of a unifying reality, that everything is really connected, somebody would look at you, it makes no sense whatsoever. But through the explosion of knowledge and technology, we see the truth that really there's a unifying existence to all of creation. And the same thing is true. When Mashiach will come, that will be revealed. And in a way of Kamayim the Machasim. See the Sikha over there. So that's basically what the Sikha is about. From this, going back to the idea of devices, the Rebbe's opinion was that anything which is revealed in the world is meant to bring us closer to Hashem and be used as an example. And we spoke about this many times also. This is connected also to the concept of a mashal and a nimshal, an analogy, that according to Chassidus, whenever Chassidus would bring an analogy, it wasn't that the Rabbeim were super geniuses that were able to bring an analogy and they came up with a brilliant analogy to bring out some truth. No, they saw how this analogy, this physical thing of the physical world, which didn't seem to be something of Torah and holiness, but that really was a reflection, the mashal was a reflection of the nimshal, of the spiritual reality that was going on. And therefore they knew, they saw the mirror, the reflection of that holy level of godliness, that svira, that divine emanation of God, that level of godliness, of elikus, and they saw it in the physical. So that's the same idea. And this in general is the whole idea of Chassidus. There's all these different stories about how Chassidim, we said this story once before, how he found the news. One chassid was told that the Tsar was shot. And the chassid immediately reacted. They say this about a couple of chassidim. He went, verloren gegangen am Moshel from chassidus. The whole idea of a Tsar in his mind was for him to be able to understand what means a melech, a king. Melech Malcham Lochem, the King of Kings Hashem. So like we have in Medrash, or in Gemara, where it says, Moshel Lamar Davademit, what is it compared to? Melech Basav Edom, a melech of flesh and blood. From the melech of flesh and blood, we can understand how it is by the Eibishter to a certain extent. Even though it's not compared, but still, for a human limited mind, to be able to have some sort of appreciation, we say, Moshe Lamad Davidema Melech Basavidam. So this chassid, the whole idea of a Tsar was, a mashal in Chassidus. It was a mashal, it was an analogy for him to appreciate Hashem a bit more real, palpable, and tangible. Anyways, so there's many, many stories that I don't want to get into it. So quickly, I'm just going to finish with 2 points from the Rebbe. One is Ha'orah from the Rebbe, Ha'orah 10, on page 590, from Sefer HaSichas, Tavshim Mem Ches. It's from a Sikha of Ekev, Tavshim Mem Ches. And the Rebbe speaks over there about looking at the world. And he says, HaTorah Megala Mitis HaMetzias V'tachlis Shel Kol Dova. The Torah reveals the true existence and the ultimate purpose of every single thing. And then he says that the whole idea of using whatever it is in the world has to be that we use it masim lamitis mitziyusai v'tivui shaladover shabaylam. We have to use everything according to its definition, according to its true meaning. When we use it according to the instruction of the Torah. If not, God forbid, then not only is it the opposite of the Torah and the opposite of the will of Hashem, but you're actually going against the reality and the nature of that thing. So this is an approach towards everything. You understand? When you go to a Jew and you tell him to put on tefillin, the point is, who are you? What is your essence? What is your true identity? And the same thing is about technology. If it's a smartphone, if it's television, if it's radio, if it's computers, the way the Rebbe looks at it, but again, we're saying clearly it has to be with the warning, use only as directed. But you have to realize, and he brings this example also in the Sikha, that the whole reason why gold was created in the first place was to be used to build a Beis HaMikdash. The worst sin ever, Chet HaEgel, the golden calf, was made through gold. That doesn't change the true definition of what gold is. The true definition of gold equals, something to be used for the Beis HaMikdash. And if you don't use it for that, then it's a betrayal of who that thing is. And that's what we're talking about today. Then it's just not true. It's not what it is. And see there, the Rebbe gives more examples. And then finally, I don't know if I ever spoke about this. Maybe I did. But it's so amazing that I'm just going to read it today. There's an answer that the Rebbe once wrote to a Kinnis HaShluchim, a gathering of Shluchim in South America. And this was in Cheshvan 19 Tavshim Mem Zayin. So it was probably in 1986, November 1986. And the Rebbe, there was a gathering, a conference of the Rebbe Shluchim in South America. And the Rebbe wrote as follows, that Niskabel v'tach v'askal atzion, I received the information about this gathering, and I will mention your names at the oil, at the resting place of the previous Rebbe. And then he says, I'm sorry, but I don't even have the time to read it properly. The report that you gave me. But since you submitted this report, so the submission was complete, in all its details, according to the Psak Din, the verdict of Teres Emes. And then he says, L'hokel ha'avona, gam la'ilu v'chuli, to make it easier to understand, even for those that are having some questions about this. Hiru dafke bizmanenu, recently in our times, we were shown, dugma beiletes, a clear example, ushalpia oisim bepoil, that people follow according to this example, according to the instructions of the example. Even in the most awesome, essential, fundamental matters, like countries, security, health issues. That even in an inanimate object, that's a daimim. Even in something inanimate, we're able to submit something to this inanimate object, and we have results, and from those results, we do things, and it makes world changes. Take if shemachnisim le computer, misper pratimikrim, as soon as you put into a computer a minute details, a small amount of details or information, berega kememra, immediately, yoidim kol hamaskonos upsak din lepel mamish. You can give information to a computer, not too much information, and immediately there'll be results and conclusions and clarity of what to do in actuality. So the Rebbe is comparing the computer to submitting the information at the resting place of his father-in-law, the Friedrich Rebbe. So when you give over and you mention those details at the resting place of my father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, so that it's obvious, it's simple. But yes, it says, it's completely incomparable, and much, much greater, exponentially so, than giving it to an inanimate object, the computer. The Rebbe says, to differentiate to no end, and he underlined those words, this is printed, I don't know if I mentioned before, Lekutei Sichos Chelik Tetzvav, volume 15, page 502. Now, this is also related to the time of the year, like we mentioned in the beginning. How amazing is it? We had Tishrei. Now comes the Aveda, V'Yaakov Holch L'Darkei, Monday morning, back to the office. We were in a month of holidays, surrounded by spirituality, completely, so to speak, in a way, abstract. In the world of spirituality, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, Hoshana Rabbah, Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, Shabbos Bereishis, high and higher and even higher. And then all of a sudden we fall into the hustle and bustle of the world. We fall into the fake world. We fall into the false world, so to speak. So here comes Parshas Noach, speaking about the flood, and how the flood, the Zohar told us 2,000 years ago, that this flood includes an explosion of secular knowledge, and as the Rebbe explains, that the whole purpose of this explosion of secular knowledge is wear the right glasses, learn how to look at things properly, and if you learn how to look at things properly, the truth, then you'll be able to elevate everything and live your life in such a way that not only will you not be bothered by the seemingly contradiction of the world to Hashem, but on the contrary, you'll see how the challenge and the opposition and the adversity turns into a friend, turns into support, and turns into something that actually brings you closer to Hashem, because you knew the right definitions, and therefore you're able to elevate everything in the world. Our Freilich and Chodesh, the Rebbe should help that we should take the spiritual heights that we had during the month of Tishrei, carry it through in the month of Cheshvan, look at the world in the right way, through the Lichtige Torah, the Torah Oyer, and in that way we should elevate the world and make a world, a Dira B'Tachtenim, a true dwelling place for Hashem. Posting from my home, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, your man in Melbourne.